Most Americans think workplace sexual harassment is a serious problem, a new HuffPost/YouGov survey finds, but many think of it as an issue that's especially pronounced in the entertainment industry, rather than in the U.S. as a whole. 8 in 10 Americans polled say workplace sexual harassment is at least a somewhat serious problem in Hollywood, with 74% saying it's at least somewhat serious in the United States. Although 53% call the problem in Hollywood very serious, however, just over one-third say the same about workplace harassment nationwide. The survey comes in the wake of a litany of sexual assault and harassment allegations against film executive Harvey Weinstein, a story that has captured the attention of much of the nation. 86% of Americans say they've heard at least something about the allegations, and 45% say that they've heard a lot about them. For contrast, about one-third said they'd heard a lot about the Obamacare repeal bill that passed the House of Representatives in May. But the survey also suggests that some Americans believe the worst sexual harassment is largely confined to Hollywood. Men, for instance, are about equally as likely as women to think sexual harassment is a very serious problem in Hollywood, but 15 points less likely to think it's very serious across the country. As is often the case, the difference is even greater between those of different political persuasions. Voters who supported President Donald Trump, many of whom may have already spurned Hollywood as a bastion of out-of-touch liberalism, are about as likely as Hillary Clinton supporters to call sexual harassment in the entertainment industry a very serious problem. They're 31 points less likely, however, to think it's equally problematic in the rest of the U.S. In many cases, the allegations against Weinstein sound nearly indistinguishable from those levied against Trump in the run-up to last year's election. 62% of Americans polled consider the accusations against Weinstein to be credible, with just 3% saying they're not credible and the rest uncertain. However, just 45% of respondents say the accusations levied at the president are credible, a number that's relatively unchanged since last October. Currently, 18% say the allegations against Trump are not credible, with the remainder unsure. The difference in perceptions of Weinstein and Trump is, once again, largely political. A majority of both Clinton and Trump voters, 74% and 66%, respectively, say the allegations against Weinstein are credible. But 83% of Clinton voters, and just 8% of Trump voters, say the same of the allegations against Trump. Use the widget below to further explore the results of the HuffPost/YouGov survey, using the menu at the top to select survey questions and the buttons at the bottom to filter the data by subgroups. Another poll released this week also highlights how partisanship affects Americans' views of sexual harassment. According to a Washington Post/ABC News survey published on Tuesday, 64% of Americans now view workplace sexual harassment as a serious problem, up 17 points since 2011. Most respondents felt that men who harass female coworkers were unlikely to face consequences. Results, however, were significantly more polarized than they were 6 years ago, with Democrats and independents rising concerns about harassment contrasting sharply against Republicans' more stagnant opinions on the issue. 79% of Democrats and two-thirds of independents, but just 42% of Republicans, considered sexual harassment to be a serious problem. The gap between men and women, by contrast, was far smaller. That survey also highlights how personally the issue resonates for many women. One-third of women polled said they'd faced sexual advances from men who worked with them and had influence over their jobs. Most said they'd faced inappropriate advances in some area of their lives. The HuffPost/YouGov poll consisted of 1,000 completed interviews conducted October 12 to 13 among U.S. adults, using a sample selected from YouGov's opt-in online panel to match the demographics and other characteristics of the adult U.S. population. HuffPost has teamed up with YouGov to conduct daily opinion polls. You can learn more about this project and take part in YouGov's nationally representative opinion polling. More details on the poll's methodology are available here. Most surveys report a margin of error that represents some, but not all, potential survey errors. YouGov's reports include a model-based margin of error, which rests on a specific set of statistical assumptions about the selected sample rather than the standard methodology for random probability sampling. If these assumptions are wrong, the model-based margin of error may also be inaccurate. Click here for a more detailed explanation of the model-based margin of error. A Gold Star father whose son died while serving in Iraq and who became part of the contentious 2016 presidential campaign said President Donald Trump simply can't comprehend what it means to make the ultimate sacrifice for his country. Khizr spoke to HuffPost Thursday following a series of controversies surrounding Trump after the deaths of 4 U.S. soldiers in Niger. Along with reportedly telling the widow of one of those who perished that her husband knew what he signed up for, Trump falsely claimed that previous presidents didn't call families of fallen service members. Khan, whose son, Army Captain Huma Young Khan, died in 2004 protecting his fellow soldiers from suicide bombers, first paid his respects to the soldiers killed in Niger. Referring to them affectionately as his sons, he said, "My humblest respect for those families, they are the most honorable in this nation at this moment and they will always be remembered as such." He added, "Such moments like this in our history require the most dignity and respect be extended to these families, to our heroes. All presidents have done that in privacy and in public, and Trump needs to do exactly the same thing." Instead, Khan said, Trump has time and again proven how little he cares about military families. He noted how Trump, during his presidential campaign, said Senator John McCain, our Arizona, wasn't a war hero because he was captured during the Vietnam War. When McCain offered his services and so bravely continued to stand for the values of this country, the president ran away from serving, Khan said, referring to deferments from the draft Trump received during the Vietnam era. He has no concept of what it takes to serve, no comprehension. Khan first came to national attention during the 2016 Democratic National Convention, giving a speech in which he said Trump had sacrificed nothing for the U.S. and asked if he had even read the Constitution. "I will gladly lend you my copy," he said at that time, pulling out a copy from his suit coat pocket and bringing his listeners to their feet. Khan told HuffPost that he doesn't have hope that 71-year-old president will change. "He has embarrassed the nation with his words, with his utter, indefensible statements," he said. "It is with sadness that I say that. This office has not dignified him, he has in fact undignified the office.